De Pure Sarva Asa Anje Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Chakudan diloje Jamne Jamne Prabhu se Chakudana diloje Jamne Jamne Prabhu se Debya Gyan Here Prakasita Debya Gyan Here Prakasita Prema Bhakti Jahoite Avidya Vinashajate Prema Bhakti Jahoite Avidya Vinashajate Vidyangan Jahara Tarita Vidyangan Jahara Tarita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Arama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Arama Janara Bandhu Alokana Alokera Jivana Lokana Lokera Jivana Aha Prabhu Kadadaya Deha Mare Parachaya Aha Prabhu Kadadaya Deha Mare Parachaya I Bijas Gesha Bhavana Ebijasa Geshotra Bhavana Aha Prabhu Karadaya Diyamare Parachaya Aha Prabhu Karadaya Dehamare Parachaya Prabhupada Patita Pavana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Deya Padela Sharanya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvasaisa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatadine Namaste Gauravani Prachadine Nirvasaisa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatadine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Brindayai Tulasi Devai, Priyai Kesavas. Okay. Jaya Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivraj Gacharya Sata Shri Shrimad Grace Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Gacharya Sata Shri Shrimad Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Svangdacharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shama Kun Radhakun Shri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavandam Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvipdam Ki Jai Shri Gangamai Jamunamai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Devi Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai Ki Jai Shri Shri Garda Nitai Ki Jai Brahad Mridanga Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai Gau Premanande Divine Grace Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Panchatatvani Mai Nitai Ki Jai The Lordship Paramakarana Nitai Gauda Chandra Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opened my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scripture sings of his character. Our spiritual master is an ocean of mercy, friend of the poor, and Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful upon us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter at your lotus feet. You are the savior of the most fallen. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Mrindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Kesava Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Padadevi Sachavatai Namo Namah. Brindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Kesava Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Padadevi Sachavatai Namo Namah. Brindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Kesava Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Padadevi Sachavatai Namo Namah. Srimati Brindadevi Tulsidev Maharani ki. Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namah. Radha Krishna Seva Pavo E Abhilasi. Je Tumhara Sharanalo Tara Vancha Purna Hoy. Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavan Bhase. Morae Abhila Bilas Kunje Dhiyava. Nayane Reva Sarha Jugalaru Parase. Enivedhana dharo Sakiranugata koro. Sivare karadhiye koro nija Dina Krishna Rasi Koye Jina Murahoy Shri Radha Govinda Premisada Jinavasi Shri Radha Govinda Premi Sarajina Bhasi Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmachari Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranashante Pradikshana Pare Pare Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmachari Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranashante Pradikshana Pare Pare Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmachari Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranashante Pradikshana Pare Pare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Marani, Jaya Tulsi Marani, Jaya Tulsi Marani, Jaya Tulsi Marani. Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi Shanti Vrindadevi Tulsi Maharani Ki Brindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Kesava Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Paridevi Sachavatai Namo Namah Brindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Kesava Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Paridevi Sachavatai Namo Namah O Tulsi, beloved of Krishna, I warang before you again and again. My desire is to serve Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. Thus in my vision, I'll always behold the beautiful pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the cohort damsels of Braj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise may always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Everybody who can chant these prayers, please chant with us. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Drishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिते नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare Hare
Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody loudly together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mayapur Prabhu, for that wonderful kirtan. So first of all, we'd like to welcome all the devotees who are joining us this morning for today's very special observance. Today is the most glorious Balaram Jayanti, or appearance of Lord Balaram, the elder brother of Krishna. So in this mood, as we continue, we're going to chant one bhajan, the Dash Avatar Stotra. So before we get into the bhajan, we would like to read the translation so that everyone can, at least we can understand and meditate on the meaning and the glorifications of Lord Balaram Krishna on this day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So the translation goes as follows. Thank you very much. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a fish, all glories to you. You easily acted as a boat in the form of a giant fish, just to give protection to the Vedas, which had become immersed in a turbulent sea of devastation. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a tortoise, all glories to you. In this incarnation, as a divine tortoise, the great Mandar mountain rests upon your gigantic back as a pivot for churning the ocean of milk. From holding up the huge mountain, a large scar-like depression is put in your back, which has become most glorious. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who assumed the form of a boar, all glories to you. The earth, which had become merged in the Garbodak ocean at the bottom of the universe, sits fixed upon the tip of your tusk like a spot upon the moon. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of half man, half lion, all glories to you. Just as one can easily cross a wasp between one's fingernails, so in the same way the body of the wasp-like demon Hiranyakashipu has been ripped apart by the wonderful pointed nails on your beautiful lotus hands. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a dwarf Brahmana, all glories to you. O wonderful dwarf, by your massive steps you deceive King Bali, and by the Ganges water that has emanated from the nails of your lotus feet, you deliver all living beings within this world. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Brigupati, Parashurama, all glories to you. At Kurukshetra, you bathed the earth in the rivers of blood from the bodies of the demonic Kshatriyas that you have slain. The sins of the world are washed away by you, and because of you, people are relieved from the blazing fire of material existence. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who assumed the form of Ramachandra, all glories to you. In the battle of Lanka, you destroy the 10-headed demon Ravana and distribute his heads as a delightful offering to the presiding deities of the 10 directions, headed by Indra. This action was long desired by all of them, who were much harassed by this monster. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Balaram, the yielder of the plow, all glories to you. On your brilliant white body, you wear garments the color of a fresh rain cloud. Shri Baladev ki! These garments are colored like the beautiful dark hue of the river Yamuna, who feels great fear due to the striking of your plow. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who assumed the form of Buddha, all glories to you. O Buddha of compassionate heart, you decry the slaughtering of poor animals, performed according to the rules of Vedic sacrifice. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who assumed the form of Kalki, all glories to you. You appear like a comet and carry a terrifying sword for bringing about the annihilation of the wicked barbarian men at the end of the Kali Yuga. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who assumed these 10 different forms of incarnation, all glories to you. O readers, please hear this hymn of the poet Jayadev, which is most excellent, an awarder of happiness, a bestower of auspiciousness, and it is the best thing in this dark world.
Shri Baladeva ki.
Jai. So the lyrics for the bhajan is on the screen. So we hope everyone can follow and please join enthusiastically with us in chanting and clapping.
प्रलयपयोधि जले धृतवानसि वेदम् विहितावहित्रचरित्रम् अखेरम् केशवाधृता मीनाशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता मीनाशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
क्षितिरिहा विपुलधरे तिष्ठति तव पृष्ठे धरणिधरानकेन चक्रगरिष्ठे केशवधृता कूर्मशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता कूर्मशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश
हरे जय जगदीश हरे वसति दर्शन शिखरे धरणी तव लग्ना शशिनी कलाङ्ककलेव निमग्ना केशवधृता शुकररूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता शुकररूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश
नखमधुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपूतनोवृङ्ग केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
कालिमाधुतवामना परनखनीरजनिता जनपावन केशवधृता वामनरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता वामनरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
क्षत्रियारुधिरमाये जगरपगतपापम् स्नपायसि पायसि शमितभवतापम् केशवधृता भृगुपतिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता भृगुपतिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
वेतसि दिक्षुरणे दिक्पतिकमनीयम् दशमुखमालिबलिं रमणीयम् केशवधृता रामशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता राम शरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
वहसि वपुषि विशदे वसनं जलदावम् हलहति भीतिमिलितयमुनाभम् केशवधृता हलधररूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता हलधररूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
ओ केशवधृता हलधररूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता हलधररूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
निन्दसि यज्ञविदेरहः श्रुतिजातम् सपयसि सदय हृदय दर्शितपशुघातम् केशवधृता बुद्धशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवरेता बुधा श्रीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
मैं शनि वाहनि धने कलयसि करवालम् धूमकेतुमिव किमपि करालम् केशवधृता कल्किशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवरेता कल्किशरीरा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवदेता हलधर रूप जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवरेता रूप जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
जय हलाधरा 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 जय हलाधरा
जय हलाधरा जय हलाधरा जय हलाधरा जय हलाधरा
जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम
जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय
कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी
गोपी जना वल्लभा जय गिरिवराधारी जय गिरिवराधारी
जय गोपीजन वल्लभ जय गिरिवराधारी जय गिरिवराधारी
जय यशोदा नंदना जय ब्रज जनरंजना
जय यशोदनन्दन जय ब्रज जनरञ्जन
यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी
जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुञ्ज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव Krishna Balaram.
Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna
Jaya
Balaram.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada,
Jaya
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Shri Balaram ki. So once again, we would like to take this opportunity to especially welcome all the devotees who are joining us here this morning. And so today is very special in many ways. Today is the appearance of Lord Balaram, or what we call Balaram Jayanti, and just in a week time or so will be Janamasmi. And today also is Raksha Bandhan, so it's very auspicious. And we want to especially welcome, yes, Prabhu is just reminding me, Purnima. Purnima is today as well, so we want to especially take this opportunity to welcome our dear Uncle Roop, Auntie Aditi, Uncle Harinarang, Mamu Das, and so many other wonderful devotees, Danakeli Mataji, Ladini Mataji. So thank you all to all the devotees and also those who are joining us on the virtual platforms. So to continue, we're going to have a very special presentation, and it'll be a live presentation on the Zoom platform, and we'll have devotees from Trinidad are also part of the program here, and we'll be hearing from one very special guest. We'd like to hand over at this point in time to His Grace Shantavigar Prabhu, who will introduce Maharaj, His Holiness Guru Prasad Maharaj, who will be giving us Balaram Katha this morning. So Shantavigar Prabhu, are you there? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Their microphone is silenced.
It's silenced.
I can hear you. I can hear you on the road.
Okay. I think people on Zoom can hear. Today is the auspicious day of Balaram Purnima, the sacred appearance day of Lord Krishna's brother, Lord Balaram. And we're very fortunate to have, over the last few days in the celebration of Julan Yatra, have had the opportunity to hear from a few devotees on the beautiful pastimes of the Lord. Last night especially, we had His Grace Bhadra Prabhu, who gave us some pastimes of Lord Balaram and some Balaram Tattva. And today, on the actual appearance day of Lord Balaram, we have His Holiness Guru Prasad Swami, who is a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, initiating Guru in ISKCON, and also a member of the GBC, long-standing member of the GBC at that. One of the interesting factoids about Gurudev, Srila Guru Prasad Swami, is that he's actually mentioned in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam in 1982, I think on May the 9th, while His Holiness Shraddhayananda Goswami was commenting on the 12th canto of Bhagavatam, I think the 3rd chapter, text number 33. He writes there that in Rio de Janeiro, he is awarding the Renounced Order of Life, Sannyas, to 3 young men, 2 Brazilians and 1 American, with the sincere hope that they will faithfully execute the rigid vows of renounced life and provide authentic spiritual leadership in South America. And one of those persons is none other than His Holiness Guru Prasad Swami. And even before then, Maharaj has been providing Krishna conscious leadership and guidance to many devotees, not only in South America, but Central America and parts of the US as well. We're very fortunate to have him here with us on this most auspicious day. And one thing I would like to add from my side, like Lord Balaram is considered in one sense the origin of the Guru Tattva. So I consider it very fortunate and very purifying from my side to be able to introduce my Diksha Guru, Srila Guru Prasad Swami, to speak to us on this auspicious day of Balaram Purnima. Gurudev, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. First of all, thank all of you very much for this opportunity to speak something about Lord Balaram. And of course, I wasn't present last night with Bhadra Prabhu's presentation, so there may be some repetition, but repetition about the Lord's pastimes is always desirable. So anyway, I'm just going to, since devotees already chanted Jaya Radha Madhava, I will just say a short Mangala Charan and then begin. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Chakshurum Militam Minatasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Shvaparantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Prodavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatyarishatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the appearance as Shanta Vigraha, as rightly said, Balaram is represented the original spiritual master. Of course, Krishna is the original spiritual master. He's the original everything. But within the Vishnu Tattva, Balaram is considered to be the original spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada states this in his second chapter of Krishna book. He says, Nayam Atma Balahinena Labhya. It's from the Upanishads. It says that no one can attain the spiritual platform without being favored, being empowered. Balahinena. Without that strength coming from Balaram, no one can actually become spiritually enlightened. And Srila Prabhupada says that Bala doesn't refer to physical strength, it refers to spiritual strength. Balaram, Sankarshan. Throughout many of the pastimes of Balaram, given in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, he's referred to as Sankarshan for different reasons. One of those reasons is that he's always bringing Krishna into the company of his devotees. And he's Sankarshan because he brought Krishna back to Vrindavan in the form of remembrance. And actually, it states, Srila Prabhupada states that, and our acharyas state, that when Balaram went to Vrindavan, and we'll discuss this a little more in detail, he actually, by his spiritual potency, Krishna entered into his mind, and everyone could see Krishna. Even though Krishna wasn't personally present in his, of course, we can't say physical form, but his external manifestation. Everyone felt the presence of Krishna because Balaram was very determined, especially when he arrived in Vrindavan and he saw the pitiable condition of the Brajavasis, that since Krishna had left, the Brajavasis were not eating or sleeping. It's amazing. I mean, how many years had gone by? It says that when Balaram arrived, all the cowherd boys, all of his friends were all growing up. You know, Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda Mai, they were elderly. Like Nanda Maharaj was already elderly at the birth of Lord Krishna, but to speak of being, you know, more elderly at that time and not eating and sleeping, and what to speak of the gopis. So Balaram, when he arrived, he meditated on Krishna. And of course, the reason that Balaram went there was because he desired, because Krishna and Balaram had discussed the residents of Vrindavan and the fact that they were missing them. And so they actually announced that Krishna actually said he wanted to go back to Vrindavan, but Vasudeva prohibited him because Vasudeva thought if Krishna goes back to you know, he's, of course, this is expanded in Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami, but basically, you know, all of our acharyas say that Vasudeva knew that if Krishna leaves and goes back to Vrindavan, which he did do, but they were very fearful that he will never come back. And of course, in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a whole, you know, episode about that and all but that's another story. So Balaram appears before Krishna because to understand Krishna, one first must approach the spiritual master. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada in his Krishna book, he says that Nityananda, therefore Nityananda Prabhu, who is an incarnation of Balaram, is the original spiritual master. And the spiritual master is representative of Balaram, the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who supplies spiritual strength. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is confirmed that the spiritual master is the manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. So, where does our spiritual strength come from? It comes from Balaram. So this is just a little introduction. So I wanted to begin by discussing one of the first pastimes that appears. Of course, there are pastimes of Krishna and Balaram together, and all through the beginning of the 10th canto, and you know, Krishna and Balaram playing together, playing with the cows, their mischievous activities, stealing the butter, and etc. So, but Balaram's first real manifestation of his own pastime, so to speak, was in the pastime of the killing of Dhenukasura. But before the killing of Dhenukasura, they're very beautiful. This was that particular activity took place on Gopastami, and Gopastami was the day when Krishna and Balaram reached the Pauganda age of 6 years old, and it was considered by Nanda Maharaj, now they have enough strength, you know, enough strength, enough intelligence, enough maturity. Of course, how many people would put a 6-year-old taking care of cows and bulls and calves? But because it says that because Krishna's extraordinary potency and effulgence, that Nanda Maharaj was allowed him to do so. I don't think anywhere else they'll have many 6-year-olds. And of course, it's stated that when Krishna and Balaram went into the forest, not only the cow, they were specifically supposed to herd the cows, and the calves were supposed to stay behind and be cared for by others. But because they could not bear separation from Krishna and Balaram, the calves also came. And even the bulls. It's very dangerous to have the bulls and the cows together. But because the bulls also couldn't stand separation from Krishna and Balaram, they also followed them into the forest on that particular day. So it was quite an interesting situation. And so as they entered into the forest, Krishna observed that these beautiful big Vrindavan trees laden with fruits and with flowers, so laden, so full of fruits and flowers, the weight of the fruits and the flowers were making them bow down. But Krishna could understand, because everything in Vrindavan is chintamani, everything is living, everything is spiritual energy. So Krishna could understand that they're actually bowing down to me. But Krishna didn't want to take the credit. And this is a very beautiful characteristic of Krishna. He wanted Balaram to take the credit. And although he, in a very light and joking manner, he began to describe the mentality or the consciousness of the trees. He said, "My dear brother, just see these trees who have been immersed in darkness," because Srila Prabhupada explains that the trees, generally speaking, when people take trees, birth in Vrindavan as trees, it's because they were impersonalists who somehow or another came in touch with devotional service, and then they became trees. But of course, these trees were not just ordinary impersonalists, although some of them may have been promoted at that particular time in Krishna's pastimes, but they were simply immersed in offering obeisances to Krishna. So Krishna said, just see, these trees are offering their fruits and their flowers to your lotus feet. Having been burdened by darkness, they see you as the personality who can actually bring them to spiritual consciousness. These trees are so blessed by the fact that by offering their fruits and flowers to your lotus feet, they will achieve the supreme destination. They will all be liberated from any darkness or any ignorance that they are suffering from. And then he said, and just see these bees that are following you around. These are not ordinary bees. These bees are actually great saintly persons who are your eternal associates. And they cannot give up your association even for a moment. But because your pastimes in Vrindavan are Guda, they're hidden, they're not fully revealed to ordinary people. They had to take the form, if they were in the form of sages, then they would not be allowed to come into the forest of Vrindavan and follow you around. Therefore, they've taken the form of bees. And as bees, they can go anywhere, and they can follow you even in the most intimate pastimes, simply wanting to enjoy the fragrance of the flowers of Vrindavan, and especially the fragrance of your lotus feet. And then he said, just see these peacocks. Just by seeing your transcendental form, they're dancing in ecstasy. They're simply trying to perform, seeing you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the greatest personality who exists. These peacocks are dancing. And of course, later on, Krishna, because the peacocks just kept dancing in ecstasy, seeing Krishna and Balaram, Krishna began to imitate the dancing of the peacocks, and everyone was laughing. And then Krishna said that, and just see these doves who, whose eyes are just like the eyes of the gopis. And when the gopis see your beautiful form, they are simply overwhelmed. And now the cuckoos who live in the forest are welcoming you into their home. Just like anyone who comes into one's home, they are singing beautiful, sweet melodies to welcome you into the forest of Vrindavan, because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so by singing, by dancing, and by glancing, these are considered to be activities of greeting. So these residents of Vrindavan have come forward to receive you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he said, and the earth is now blessed by the imprints of your lotus feet. Of course, it's explained that when Krishna and Balaram in their previous times as very, very young boys, the images on their lotus feet, the symbols, were not fully developed, and so people would see them, but they weren't very clear. But now, at this age, the symbols on their lotus feet were very plain. And so Krishna said, getting the touch of these symbols, the earth has become ecstatic. And not only the earth, but the grasses, which are being touched by your lotus feet, are being nurtured in spirituality. And the flowers and the herbs and the creepers are being touched by your nails when you go to touch them, to pick a flower, or to get something from the trees or the creepers. Just like later on, when Krishna is, the gopis are looking for Krishna, they approach the trees and they say basically the same things that Krishna is saying to Balaram. So he says, the earth has become so fortunate, because now you have, and all the residents of Vrindavan, those that are long away, those that don't get the direct touch of your lotus feet or the direct touch of your lotus hands, they're all receiving the unlimited blessing of your merciful glance. And by that merciful glance, all the residents of Vrindavan are blessed. So Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's also the origin of everything. So where does humility come from? Humility comes from Krishna. And Krishna exhibits that even in his Vrindavan pastimes, which are so intimate and so where he hides his personality, but he still shows the characteristics of a spiritual personality. That humility, love, respect, all these things are there in the Supreme Personality of God. So then the cowherd boys, they began to frolic within the forests of Vrindavan together with Balaram. And the next thing that happened, which Krishna is again glorifying Balaram, and this all has a purpose. Balaram lays down and puts his head in the lap of one of the cowherd boys. And what does Krishna do? He comes and massages his lotus feet and his legs. And then he begins to fan Balaram. Now, why is Krishna doing this? Of course, Krishna, on the one hand, is the original humble person, giving us an example, but he also had a very special purpose. He thought, I killed Putana, I killed Shakatasura, and I killed Vatsasura, and now I want Balaram. I want Balaram to get the credit. He should kill some demons also. And of course, that has another meaning which we'll go over later. And so Krishna was pushing Balaram forward. He was glorifying Balaram because he wanted Balaram of course, Krishna is omniscient. Krishna knew that shortly after that, the cowherd boys would ask him and Balaram to go into the Talavan and liberate Talavan, because Talavan had become untouchable, unapproachable because of Dhenukasura. So then, after frolicking some of the time, it's stated by our acharyas that the easterly breeze, which is generally comes in the month of Bhadra and shortly thereafter, which would have been Gopastami, was bringing this beautiful fragrance from Talavan. Talavan is situated, between Mathura and Govardhan. So the cowherd boys, when they perceived that fragrance, they approached Krishna and Balaram and they said, "My dear Krishna and Balaram, please do something. There's these wonderful sweet fruits," because at this particular time of year, this is when the tal fruit is completely ripe. Now, I don't know about 5,000 years ago, but the tal fruits that I had were not so sweet. But anyway, there are many things. Just like we go to Vrindavan, there's extreme heat, extreme cold. But in the time of Krishna and Balaram, there was no extreme heat or cold because of their presence. So we may not perceive the tal fruits that were originally there 5,000 years ago. And especially those tal fruits were taking birth, or those tall trees were taking birth in the presence of Krishna and Balaram. So the cowherd boys, they said, "We want to eat these fruits." And also the cows, they can never go there to graze. Even the birds are afraid to enter into that forest because of the presence of Dhenukasura. So they said all this directly to Balaram because they wanted to incite Balaram's anger, which is explained that Balaram has more fighting spirit than Krishna. Because whatever Balaram, just as in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is, Nityananda Prabhu always carries out that mission to the highest degree. So whatever Krishna's mission is, then Balaram will accentuate it. So because Krishna's mission at this particular time was to kill a demon, then they wanted to incite Balaram, who has even more fighting spirit because he wants to represent Krishna's desire and Krishna's mood. So they were inciting Balaram. And therefore Krishna encouraged Balaram, you go take care of this. And so Balaram entered into the Talavan forest and grabbed one of the trees and began shaking it. And when he began to shake it, because he was right under the tree, but all the fruits fell on the outside. But by his spiritual potency, and some acharyas say that he actually manifested hundreds of arms, he began to shake all of the nearby trees. So the sound of the fruits falling was thunderous. And of course, Dhenukasura heard that, and he came. And Balaram wanted to show not only his potency, but he wanted to show one of the six opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is renunciation. Therefore, Dhenukasura came before him, and Dhenuka came before him, turned around, and thought, "Oh, this Balaram, he's not even fighting." So he kicked him in the chest. And even after kicking him in the chest, Balaram didn't do anything. And then after kicking him, being an ass, Dhenuka began to dance around and braying and showing all kinds of anger. Balaram just stood there. Then he turned around again and said, and he was thinking, now I'll kick him and destroy him. But when he did so, Balaram with one hand grabbed the points, his hooves, and began to twirl him around and around and around so hard that his life force flew out of his body, and Balaram threw him on top of one of the trees. And because of his weight, that tree fell down, and then another tree fell down, and another tree fell down, and another tree fell down, showing the potency of Balaram. And of course, then Denuka's friends, they saw Balaram, they saw what had happened, and they came, and this time Krishna stepped in, and Krishna began to throw them, and Krishna and Balaram together threw all of them on top of the trees. Their bodies were dark, and they were bleeding from the chastisement and from being slain by Krishna and Balaram. So it's described in the Bhagavatam that, because some of the trees were still standing, that the trees looked like they had clouds, reddish and darkish clouds, because red from the blood and dark from the bodies of the demons. So it looked like beautiful clouds, it looked very beautiful. Generally speaking, if we see dead bodies with blood, it's not very beautiful. But because it was coming from Krishna and Balaram, it all looked very beautiful. And then, of course, the demigods, and of course, the cowherd boys were saying, bravo, bravo. And the demigods began to shower flowers. And immediately, the cows went into the forest, because that particular forest, it described that it didn't have any rocks, it didn't have any stones, it had beautiful soil with wonderful grasses. So the cows went in. But although the cowherd boys had spoken about the fruits, none of the cowherd, because although they said that they wanted the fruits, they actually wanted the fruits to offer to Krishna and Balaram. But because all the fruit had become contaminated with blood and all the impure substances on the ground, the cowherd boys were not going to offer that to Krishna, just like Raghava Pandit would not offer anything to the Lord that had even a speck of dust that might have touched the feet, someone's feet. If it landed on top of a fruit or a coconut, he would not offer it. So, but the Pulindas and other lower class people came and began to eat the fruits. And of course, later on, after the whole scene, the cowherd boys could come and offer these fruits to Krishna. They never had a desire for pleasing themselves. They only had a desire for pleasing Krishna and Balaram. So later, there are these two particular pastimes are special, and we'll go over that. Then a little later, Krishna and Balaram again entered into the forest, and of course, it again describes the beautiful pastime of Krishna and Balaram. Krishna and Balaram are playing their flutes. Even Balaram and even the cowherd boys have peacock feathers. Not that only Krishna has a peacock feather, but Krishna always has a peacock feather when he's in Vrindavan. And so Krishna is always characterized by the peacock feather, but also Krishna's friends and Balaram, they also use peacock feathers. So anyway, they're playing their flutes, but no one can play like Krishna. Even Balaram plays the flute in a very special way that no one else can imitate, but even Balaram cannot play the flute like Krishna. So they entered into the forest. They began to play different games like leapfrog and other things. And then on that particular day, one of the cowherd boys was ill and he was not able to go. So Pralamba Sura, of course, these demons, they have mystical power. So he could understand which cowherd boy had not come, and he assumed the form of that cowherd boy. But Krishna, being omniscient, of course, Balaram is also omniscient, but sometimes Balaram, for the purpose of Leela, Balaram's omniscience is covered by Krishna. Krishna is the only person who can cover Balaram's omniscience. And so Krishna could understand, and he was thinking, how will I kill this demon? So he devised a game where there was some competition, and whoever lost the competition would have to carry the corresponding person of the other group on their back. So Krishna's group lost. So Krishna had to carry Sridham, and Pralamba had to carry Balaram. Pralamba had seen that Krishna is very powerful. Let me take care of Balaram first, then I'll see what to do about Krishna. And this was because Krishna actually made his potency more apparent and made Balaram's potency less apparent. Because again, Krishna wanted Balaram to kill this demon. So everyone began racing to a bandira tree. This bandira, or this banyan tree, was a very special one. It was actually a kalpavriksha tree. Of course, all the trees in Vrindavan are kalpavriksha, but this was a very special kalpavriksha tree. So the idea was you carry them to that point and then you come back. But when Pralamba came to that tree, he kept going. And Balaram was wondering, why is he running away? And then, but because of Balaram's potency, he being Sankarshan, it's mentioned against Sankarshan, and Prabhupada mentions as Sankarshan means the original force of gravity. And the original force of gravity comes from Balaram. And so, because of his weight, the Pralamba couldn't sustain his mystical form of a cowherd boy anymore, and he transformed into a demon. And when Balaram saw that he had transformed into a demon, Balaram was, he was surprised. He was a little bit angry, and he was saying, why is he carrying me away? But then Balaram, something very special happened. Balaram apparently exhibited fear, some kind of fear or apprehension. So why did he exhibit this apprehension or fear? Because of various reasons. First of all, he thought that this cowherd boy, or whatever he is, was welcomed by Krishna. Krishna befriended him, and therefore I'm not so sure I should kill him, because Krishna showed him friendship. And then he also felt apprehension because he thought, this person is a demon. What if there's another demon that has come to hurt Krishna? So he was very concerned about Krishna. And another consideration was that Krishna, that somehow or another, I should not kill a cowherd boy. But then Balaram remembered, actually, Krishna killed a woman, Putana. Krishna killed a calf. No, that's totally prohibited. So he figured this cowherd boy is not a cowherd boy, he's a demon, and I better get back to Krishna. But he's thinking like he was thinking with the sentiment of an older brother. Although he knows Krishna is supreme, he's feeling this rasa of being the elder brother and being responsible for Krishna. So he immediately struck the demon on the head. His head cracked open and he died. And then, of course, then Krishna and all the cowherd boys came and glorified Balaram, and said, Balaram, so wonderful that you've done this, that you killed this demon. And well, again, Krishna wanted Balaram to take the credit. Now, these two demons particularly represent, of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita. He briefly mentions the different demons in Krishna Lila and the different anarthas that they represent. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says about Dhenukasura that he represents the complete ignorance of spiritual truth, which comes from too much material intelligence. Now, sometimes we want, about a false ego, we want to be seen as more intelligent than others. But according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that creates ignorance of spiritual truth, lack of spiritual intuition, foolishness. An ass is, of course, very foolish. And asses, of course, Srila Prabhupada characterizes an ass being so stupid that there's grass everywhere, but they think, if I work hard, my master will give me grass. So everything that Dhenuka represents is contrary to spiritual knowledge. Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he goes on to expand this particular concept. And he says, because Balaram is represents the spiritual master, that without the intervention of the spiritual master, without the spiritual master killing the ignorance of the spiritual reality, without the spiritual master revealing, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did in his pastime with Prakashananda, that material intelligence is dangerous in spiritual life if it's not used properly. So much so that says Janmaishvara Shuddha Shribir Edamana Manapumam, that material intelligence, material beauty, good birth, and wealth can be very distracting if one is not expert at using them in Krishna service. So therefore the spiritual master must take these away, and therefore it was Balaram's duty to kill Dhenukasura and create the possibility that one can actually enter into Krishna consciousness. And of course, the demon Pralamba according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, represents lust for women, greed, desire for worship, and desire for position. Otherwise, you position yourself as something you're not, the false ego. And therefore, it is the duty of the spiritual master in preaching to destroy these tendencies. And again, Balaram was chosen by Krishna or encouraged by Krishna to kill these two particular demons. So those two, I just wanted to especially emphasize those two particular pastimes, because they represent something according to our acharyas, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So later on, Balaram, as I briefly mentioned, Balaram desired to go to Vrindavan, and because he and Krishna received messages, they would receive messages from Vrindavan. And of course, Krishna was anxious to go back to Vrindavan. So Krishna gave permission to Balaram, you go and you tell the gopis, he sent a message, which is in the Hari Vamsa. And the message was that, my dear gopis, I'm very anxious to be with you, but at this particular time, I cannot come, and therefore my brother is coming. And as I mentioned, and at that point, Balaram arrived in Vrindavan, and immediately Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai greeted him. Everyone greeted him, but they called him into their house. And it's mentioned by Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas that even though Krishna was Nanda Maharaj's favorite son, Krishna treated Balaram at that particular time as the elder brother and therefore the predominant son. And therefore they asked Balaram immediately, does Krishna still remember us? Does Krishna, of course, there's a heart-rendering in Chaitanya Charitamrita, heart-rendering conversation between Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being Krishna and Radha at Kurukshetra. And the same question is posed by Radha. Have you forgotten your parents? I can understand you want to kill us by separation, but do you want to kill Yashoda? And so So Nanda Maharaj, but they very respectfully said, does Krishna remember us? We're very happy on the one hand that you and Krishna went, you killed Kamsa, and therefore our dear friends and relatives, Vasudev and Devaki, are freed from persecution. So what you did was very wonderful. But do you all still think of us? Do you think of Vrindavan? Will Krishna be able to come back at some point in time? But then the gopis, after of course Krishna and Balaram assured them, he greeted the elder gopis, the elder gopas with respect, the elder gopis with respect, the contemporary gopas with embraces and handshakes, and the younger gopas with blessing. And then who came? The gopis. But these gopis at first, the ones that came, were Krishna's gopis. And they said the same thing. Has Krishna completely forgotten us? Enamored by the women of Dwarka? Certainly, Krishna, these women are more intelligent than us. They must not be so bewildered by Krishna and his activities. But on the other hand, what woman could ever resist? So therefore, they are probably also being cheated by Krishna, as we have been cheated by Krishna. And then some of them said, let's not talk about Krishna. Let's forget about Krishna. But then another gopi said to Balaram that, unfortunately, we can see clearly that Krishna can forget about us and be perfectly happy in Dwarka. Is that true? But unfortunately, we can't forget him. And by not forgetting him, we are most unhappy. So of course they were in bliss. They were in bliss of Vipralamba Seva, separation from Krishna. But so they inquired, and Balaram spoke about Krishna and how Krishna wants to come. But actually Balaram, first Uddhava said that Krishna will come. And then Balaram assured them that in the near future, certainly Krishna will come, because he could see that if I don't give them that encouragement, that they will just disappear. They will just leave their bodies. They'll leave this world. So Balaram stayed. After seeing this, he stayed for 2 months. Every day he would speak with the gopis, Krishna's gopis, about Krishna's activities. And in the evening, he had his own gopis, and his own gopis, he would dance with them in the forests of Vrindavan, and they were especially blissful. And of course, as I mentioned, Krishna had manifest in Balaram's mind by Balaram's desire. And so even though Krishna's gopis, of course, they were not dancing with Balaram, but they were feeling the presence of Krishna during Balaram's, and therefore, although they're feeling separation, at the same time they were feeling some presence of Krishna, and they were very happy by Balaram's presence. And then, toward the end of his pastimes, on one particular day, Balaram, the Varuna, his daughter, he manifested his daughter in the forest of Vrindavan, Varuni. And Varuni is, some acharyas say it is a special heavenly nectar. Others say it is a type of special liquor which is derived from honey. But in any case, Balaram, who loves very much this Varuni, and so Balaram was drinking the Varuni, and his eyes were rolling, they were red and rolling in transcendental intoxicated manner. And Balaram was enjoying with the gopis, and then he desired to have water sports. And so he called the Yamuna. He said, please come. And Yamuna was thinking, oh, he's drunk. Just like sometimes we're in Harinam and some drunk will come up and we don't pay much attention. So Yamuna also didn't pay much attention. Balaram became angry. He took his plow and he said, you wretched river, I am going to divide you into hundreds of different rivulets for disobeying my order. And immediately Yamuna Devi could understand, because this was Kalindi. This Kalindi is an expansion of Krishna's wife, Kalindi. She appeared and she said, please forgive me in ignorance. I did not recognize you. Your pastimes are very difficult to discern. And therefore, I was not able to understand who you are. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, of course, he had already touched her with his plow, and that created little rivulets. And of course, Srila Prabhupada mentions that if you go to Vrindavan, you see there are different little branches of the Yamuna. And whenever we see those branches, we can remember this pastime of Balaram and his dance. So anyway, Yamuna came, he went into the Yamuna, he came out, and the gopis dressed him in beautiful blue garments and gold decorations. And then he was very pleased and finished up his pastimes and left. And again, all of the gopis in lamentation of separation. So there are other pastimes. We're coming to the end of our time here, but there are the one other pastime I really wanted to mention, which is kind of a humorous one, is Dvivida, because there's a special lesson in the Dvivida pastime. Dvivida and his brother Minda were actually servants, and they're actually eternal servants of Lord Ramachandra. Now, different acharyas say something a little bit different. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that the Dvivida and Minda that appeared, of course, Dvivida created so many disturbances because unfortunately, although he was an associate of Ramachandra, he couldn't fully understand the glories. Of course, this is all arrangement of Yoga Maya, the glories of Lakshman. And because of that offense, he began to associate with Narakasura. And because of that bad association, he fell from the grace of Ramachandra, he and his brother Minda. And so Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur explains that he became a demon to show the danger of bad association, just like Jai and Vijay, of offending a devotee or taking bad association. And so to show the effects of bad association, so I just wanted to emphasize, because we also have to be very careful about bad association. Dvivida became inimical to Krishna, and he was trying to create so many disturbances, disturbing the Brahmins, disturbing everyone. Even sometimes he was very strong. As powerful as 10,000 elephants. He would go to the ocean and hit it with his hands, and that would cause coastal flooding. He would urinate on sacrificial fires. So Balaram was at Raivati Hill enjoying with different consorts. And Dvivida came and started creating disturbances. First, he made loud sounds. Srila Prabhupada says, kila kila, making sounds of a monkey or a gorilla. And then he came closer and closer and showed his teeth and even showed the lower parts of his body to the gopis, not the gopi, but the consorts of Balaram. And the consorts of Balaram, they were laughing because Prabhupada says sometimes young women, they laugh at many things. But then after he was so offensive, Balaram threw a stone at him. And then he took a tree and hit Balaram on the head. Balaram grabbed it, broke it to pieces. he still didn't do much. But then Vivida kept attacking, and then Balaram attacked back and hit him. And then Balaram hit him very hard with his club. But this just enraged Vivida, and Vivida attacked Balaram again, and with trees, and he hit him with so many trees that there were no trees left. Then he took stones from mountaintops and threw them at Balaram, and Balaram just broke them to pieces. But because then Vivida attacked him with his fists, and of course Balaram put down his plow and his club and just hit him on the collarbone. The collarbone penetrated his lung and his heart, and he died. So, of course, there are other beautiful pastimes of Balaram. One of the very funny ones, the killing of the king of Kalinga, who was encouraged by Duryodhana to have a gambling match, a chess match with Balaram, who wasn't very expert. First, they waged 100 coins, 1,000 coins, 10,000 coins, and Balaram lost. So he was a bit angry. But then they bet 100,000 coins, and Balaram and the king was laughing at him. The king of Kalinga was laughing at him, showing his teeth. And when Balaram could see that he was actually cheating, because Rukmi had, wanted some revenge. And so he took his club and smashed out his teeth and broke his arms. And then everybody else went running for their lives. So these are some of the beautiful pastimes of Shri Balaram. I know that some of you now you have your Artik ceremony. So I think I'll stop at this point. And those that can stay online can, if there's any questions or any doubts or any comments, they can, you can do so now. Thank you all very much for your kind attention. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga. So
Hare Krishna. If there's anybody who has any question, any comment, you can please unmute and make it now.
Hare Krishna.
Narishwa, you're very broken up.
Yeah, it's breaking up. Well, there's one person with their hand raised. Maybe we can take that one. Connection. Narishwar gets his connection. So Adira.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Mother Nandini. Thank you so much for your class. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I was actually listening to a lecture about Balaram Purnima. And in this lecture, it was describing how Balaram loves to serve Krishna, and therefore he makes all arrangements. It takes the form of his bed and his pillow and so many things. And I
Hare Krishna.
You would
So
share.
I know the Maharaj still has some time and he'll go on with some questions and so, but we have to go for Artik now, or midday Artik. And if you like, you can, this presentation, you can find easily on YouTube. So if you would like to look at the entire presentation or to hear it again, you can go on YouTube and we can all direct you to the site and all that. But nevertheless, we want to thank His Holiness Guru Prasad Maharaj very much for being with us this morning, enlightening on the glories and wonderful pastimes of Lord Balaram. Shri Baladeva ki jai. So now we'd like to invite each and every one of you to please stand and join us in beautiful darshan and artik to their lordships, Shri Shri Nitai Gaurachandra, who is none different from Shri Shri Krishna Balaram. Jaya Nitai Gaura Chandra Jaya Nitai Gaura Chandra Jaya Nitai Gaura Chandra Jaya Nitai Gaura Chandra Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram
Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Shri Shri Paramakaruna Nitai Gaura Chandra Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine
Iti namine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasatyadeshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha
Srila Prabhupada ki
Shunyavadi Pashacharishatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Gaura Chandra Ki Jai
Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Everybody.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Everybody. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Everyone.
Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Everybody Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Everybody
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Everybody, everybody.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
So I would like to again encourage everybody to chant as loud as and sincere as possible. Apart from Balarama parents, today we are also celebrating the wedding anniversary of at least two of my favorite person on the planet, Auntie Aditi, Uncle Roop. So we can all chant and also pray for Lord Balaram blessing for them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Everybody.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Baladeva Jaya Baladeva Baladeva Jaya Baladeva
Jaya Balarama Jaya Balarama Balarama Jaya Balarama
Jaya Balaram Jaya Balaram Jaya Balaram
Jaya Balaram Balaram Jaya Balaram
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Haribo 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 Gora Haribo Gora Haribo 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 Gora Haribo Tai Gora Haribo 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 Gora Haribo
Jai Gora Haribo Haribo Gora Haribo Namaste Narasingaya
Pralada Lada Daine
Pralada Lararaine
Hiranyakashipur Vakshaha
Hiranyakashe Purvakshaha
Shilatankana Kalaye
Shilatankana Kalaine
Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha
Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha
Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha
Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha
Bahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha
Bahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha
Nrsimha Madim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingha Marim Sharanam Prapade
Nrsimha Madim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingha Marim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingha Marim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingha Marim Sharanam Prapade
Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanavringam Keshavadrita Narhari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tano Bhringa Keshavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Keshavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Nrsingadev, Nrsingadev, Jaya Nrsingadev. Jaya Nrsingadev, Jaya Nrsingadev, Nrsingadev, Jaya Nrsingadev. Jaya Pralad Nrsimha, Jaya Pralad Nrsimha, Pralad Nrsimha, Jaya Pralad Nrsimha. Jaya Pralad Nrsimha, Jaya Pralad Nrsimha, Jaya Pralad Nrsimha, Jaya Pralad Nrsimha. Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai, Pralad Maharaj ki jai.
Jam Jagachar Shatar Sada Shishimad. His Divine Grace Abhayacharana Bhakti Vedanta Jagadguru Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON VVT founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariva Jagachar Shatar Sada Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Thakur ki jai. Adanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Gir Govardhan ki jai. Shri Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Purshtama Shesha Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Gangamaya Jamunamaya ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Srimati Tulsi Dev Maharani ki jai. Shri Yogadharma Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Shri Prabhupada's Transcendental Books Distribution ki jai. Brihat Mridanga ki jai. Shri Paramakarantai Gaur Chandra ki jai. Shri Balaram Purnima ki jai. Shri Baladeva ki jai. Samveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Hare Krishna, you can please have your seats.